My name is Arne von Sternheim. I'm a dental implant specialist and educator for 26 years. I'm in private practice based in Germany, and if you are restoring dental implants and if you have seen crowns coming off, porcelain fracture, much more than with natural teeth, and abutment screw loosening. And if you ever wondered if occlusion may play a role with that, well then let me tell you that you are here exactly at the right spot, because we will address all of those issues in such a manner that afterwards you will easily handle all of those. And I invite you to join the process. I'm glad you're watching this video. Just continue until the end. It's a few minutes you will invest, and I guarantee you it will pay off for you, certainly. It's my belief that the major problem is, on one hand, that indeed in dental school we learn about occlusion, Possel's envelope of motion, centric relation, ICP, protrusion, lateral protrusion, medial protrusion, group function, canine guidance, anterior guidance, parafunction, TMJ and TMD, all of which we remember and implement to a certain extent. But in our daily life, before we deliver prosthetic work, we actually pray that occlusion is not going to be too high. And we know that most of the times occlusion is going to be too high. Until this point, nothing new. We all have been there, seen that. However, the problem, on the other hand, is that in dental school, do we learn how all this may change once we restore dental implants? Since biomechanics is so very different from natural teeth to implants, so should be occlusion. Principles can't be the same, can they? So how does occlusion change from teeth to implants? There are some pitfalls, isn't it? At the same time, unfortunately, there are not many people talking about occlusion in implant dentistry, not in dental school, and no continuing education courses afterwards. So just like in real life, one thing leads to another. So what are we doing with those abutment screws that are getting loose, since we are lacking in suitable educational resources? Is that instinctively we tend to tighten those screws even more. But now, without addressing the occlusal issues, those over-tighten abutment screws will break. To remove a fractured abutment screw is not very easy, because it's not the loosened abutment screw that fractures, it's always the over-tighten one that fractures. So an over-tighten abutment screw to remove is close to impossible. There are some removal kits on the market, but none of them are really the one and only that helps us. As you can see from this picture, in solving the problem, the only option was to remove the implant. And to remove an osseointegrated implant goes usually with a huge amount of bone loss, meaning we will have then to graft, to wait, replace the implant, wait for the healing, and so on and so on. So it's a huge time investment, which patients usually don't like. It's not only a matter of liking, But much more than that, it's a matter of losing trust. They don't trust us anymore once we get until this point. So actually, this is a so-called less syndrome. The patient has less confidence in us. The patient has less bone afterwards. The patient has less money because they paid just before. They will not pay the bone grafting. They will not pay the removal of the implant. They will not pay the new implant. That's all on us, and plus the loss of faith. In other words, we should do everything possible to avoid these issues. And let's not forget the next issue, which is an abutment fracture usually doesn't come alone. The abutment screw breaks also, and it's usually a multiple fracture issue. Unfortunately, things don't stop here. And if the fracture of the abutment doesn't happen, well, that force has to go somewhere. Where does it go? To the bone. So what happens next is that we start seeing crestal bone loss. And crestal bone loss, once it starts, it goes further to peri-implantitis. And of course, it's the patient's fault because he doesn't clean, because he smokes, because he doesn't come to checkups and to hygiene appointments, isn't it? And once the peri-implantitis is moving forward, the implant has less bone support, and the forces that apply on that implant now will lead to, guess what? The fracture of the implant itself. Back to this case, what amazed me for a very long time, speaking firstly for myself, is that I've been looking only at what's happening, not why it's happening. So looking just at the fractures without looking at the opposing arch, what happens in the lower arch, was a big mistake for a long time in my practice. It takes a little more scrutiny to see the different wear patterns because bruxism isn't uniform. If we take a closer look at those lower incisors, we see a different amount of wear. Looking at the canine, the wear is tremendously different. John Kuyes called this the engram pattern for bruxism. Carl Misch called this the pathway of destruction. And it is, isn't it? Now, if you still think that occlusion has no contribution, please do me a favor and send me an email, because then I must be a terrible educator and then I need to shoot myself. Well, I can tell you from my own experience that it is indeed annoying enough to solve those problems which are coming into our offices from other colleagues in the area. It's not fun. Patients don't enjoy it. We don't enjoy it. Patients are losing confidence in the other dentists, so we have to do it. We do it with pleasure. It's not a problem. but it's annoying. And you know what's much more annoying than that? I can tell you from my own experience, it is not what others did, because it's their stuff. Much more annoying than that are those complications that are coming from my own cases. Now I am concerned, isn't it? And the reason for that, quite obviously, is that I am the cause of the problem. Now, of course, I am much more annoyed about what's going on. So having seen those things over 26 years, at some point, I did start thinking about why not avoiding all of those issues in first place. Now, guess what? This is exactly the reason for the Masterclass Occlusion and Implant Dentistry, which will be presented to you in the Zoom webinar only on July the 28th at 2 p.m. Central European Time. Until now, we planned from 2 to 4, but most of the times we will exceed that time. So please plan a little bit more time. Quite honestly, looking back 10, 15, 20 years, if I would have had the opportunity to follow such a masterclass for occlusion implant dentistry, I wouldn't miss the chance. Will you?
We have to stop thinking that occlusion is occlusion, because an implant is not a tooth. They react very differently.
So, what will we be talking about? Well, I'm telling you. We will speak firstly, and it is important to start with that because otherwise everything else doesn't make sense. We will start firstly with the differences between teeth and dental implants. And once we understand those differences, we can go ahead to the next steps, which are the differences in occlusion from teeth to implants. How to achieve stable occlusion for long-term success. Now, what are the occlusal considerations for implant supported restorations? What is the role of occlusal morphology? Should the occlusal morphology in implant dentistry be the same as with natural teeth? We will analyze bite forces and its impact on implant prosthetics. We will consider also the opposing arch, which, from what I have seen, most of the times it's completely ignored. We will talk about the relevance of how to design the contact points. We will talk about the impact of jaw movement on implant restorations. We will talk about the reciprocity concept in occlusion. We will talk also about the implant to crown ratio, which actually at the end of the day is nothing else than a vertical cantilever. And if cantilevers do play a role, then it doesn't matter if they are vertical or horizontal. As a matter of fact, in the end, both cantilevers do matter. We will talk also about the impact and the importance and the consequences of parafunction. At the end of the day, last but not least, we will talk about the role of night guards. I can assure you that respecting those principles will pay off for you just as they did for me. Following, you will see just a few examples.
This is Werner, very, very proud of his new teeth. Right now we are at 5 years post-op. What are 5 years post-op? Not very much. Yet, in times of Facebook dentistry, when everybody is showing what he just did 5 minutes before or yesterday, 5 years are quite a reasonable time. Long or short, put it as you wish. Important is that the results are stable and the patient is happy. He is driving for each checkup 350 kilometers each way, 700 kilometers just for checkups. So this is Karen. Before treatment, she was scared to death of dentist. Now she comes in with a huge smile. So this is her situation now, 9 years post-op. So this is Joan, former professional boxer and current debt collector. So I had a little bit of respect before starting the treatment. Nevertheless, 12 years post-op, situation is stable. This is another Werner, this time from our area. 19, almost 20 years post-op, stable situation again. This is Doris, 23 years post-op. Now this is where dentistry really starts being fun for me. This is heartbreaking Martha. We started her treatment only 3 years ago. She turned, meanwhile, 96, and we are celebrating each year that we can add up at the end of the treatment. So what I'd like you to do is think about your treatments that you have done today, yesterday, the week before, the month before, and think about those treatments. How would they look like 20 years later? And how would you regard your own treatments 20 years later? So whatever is not passing the test of time is quite worthless, isn't it? So think about which way do you want to go on the long run?
So it's up to you if you want to join me to the truly enlightening webinar, Masterclass, Occlusion, Implant, Dentistry, and see how all that could work out for you. Remember, as Albert Einstein said, that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, yet expecting different results. Some people asked me, why don't you offer this for free? Well, there's a reason for it. I do not believe in things that are for free. It is my belief that whenever something is for free, I am the product. Meaning, they will sell something to me because otherwise they can't pay their bills. Isn't it? So, how does it work? With product placement in first place, meaning that you can do this and that treatment only with our implant, or only with our abutment, or only with our impression material, or only with our scanner, or only with our 3D printer, or only with this, or only with that. So the Masterclass has a very, very small fee for a very simple reason. In my webinar, I guarantee you there is no brand name. There is no product placement. There is also no prompting you to sign up for the next level of continuing education, which is now 10 times the price. So I do stand for the daily practical science in dentistry, uncolored by any products or any companies or any click here to go to the next level. I want you to feel like, okay, I paid some very, very small fee and I walked away with this amount of science that I will bring into my office from Monday. In other words, in this masterclass, Occlusion in Implant Dentistry, you will learn all the principles that I had to adopt to protect myself from all those shortcomings. Would you like to do that too? As you hopefully have seen until this point, it is my passion to educate. And in that passion, I am certain that once you have finished this masterclass, you will be able, guaranteed, to identify and to implement into your daily practice all of those principles. So I cordially invite you to join the process. You are most welcome to secure your spot at your earliest convenience by clicking the link below and signing up. But please don't wait too long, as Zoom is limiting the number of participants. Not everybody is aware of this, but Zoom is limiting the number of participants. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you on July 28th at 2 p.m. But don't forget, it's Central European time. And until then, don't forget, occlusion is a bitch. But don't tell it anyone. It's a secret. In the end, in dentistry, there is nothing so rewarding as implant dentistry. And I hope you really will enjoy it to the fullest. So I really hope that you enjoyed those few minutes that you invested in watching this video, and I'm really glad you did. Thank you for that. I hope you enjoyed it and had some inspiring moments about occlusion and implant dentistry, and I hope to see you in the masterclass. Until then, take care, my friends.